You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Johannes Ekström of Avatar. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Today's episode of the ToneMob.com podcast is brought to you by Sinasoid. Now, not only do these guys make sweet cables, but they are some righteous dudes. I mean, seriously. Awesome, awesome folks over there. And their cables carry a 100-year warranty. I mean, how can you beat that? A 100-year warranty on your guitar cables. But wait, there's more. They also just recently came out with the Sinasoid Sliver, which is a itty-bitty, teensy-weensy, little tiny patch cable, so you can squeeze one more pedal on your board. And what's more, these bad boys are soldered, so you know they're going to be reliable. They even passed the pull on them and yank really hard test, so that's a pretty good test in my book. And even better, they are giving away a Sinasoid Sliver every Friday for the foreseeable future at this point. So you just head over to sinusoid.com/giveaway. The link's in the show notes. That's sinusoid.com/giveaway. Enter your info, and then you're automatically eligible for a free patch cable every Friday. There you go. Boom. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. And with me today, I have a very special guest, a fellow guitar podcaster, Mark Packham from Guitar Nerds.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
It's one of the guitar podcasts that I listen to every week, so it's super weird to be on the receiving end of the intro. And like we were just saying before we started recording, how weird it is to be interviewed when normally like I'm the one who holds the Guitar Nerd show together. So yeah, I'm looking to see what kind of probing questions you got.
Oh, it's really in-depth stuff. This is like Barbara Walters level stuff we're talking about here. I'm not sure that's a reference that really carries over to a UK audience. So that was one of the things I was gonna ask you about, like, because there's so many times where you guys are talking about things. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? Like, I don't know what that means. What's this train business you guys are talking about down there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh God. Yeah. No, don't get me started on the trains. We could do a whole podcast. In fact, I might start doing one, just a weekly rundown of like how bad the service has been this week, and see if I can interview anyone on the inside, maybe.
Well, who knows? I mean, so where exactly are you guys based? Are you based in London or are you somewhere else?
No, so we're based in Brighton. So okay. It's like it's on the south coast. And it is, I would say, maybe a 40 or 50 minute train ride from Brighton to London.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is not something I do that often. But yeah, sunny south coast. It's kind of like you're in Portland, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the UK's version of Portland. We have a kind of half weird, kind of hippie community, but in recent years, it's kind of hipsters and everything that you'd expect in a kind of UK Portland crossover.
Nice. That sounds like a place I'd enjoy. Quite
definitely.
A lot.
Definitely. It's a great music scene. People know for that. Quadrophenia was set here, so there's like loads of kind of old musical ties.
Nice. That's cool. I actually visited London a few years ago.
Okay.
But we weren't there very long, so I didn't really have any chance to like branch out. But like when you guys were talking about the bad train service, I was thinking like the
the tube system was amazing when I was there. I wonder what the problem is they're having.
Yeah, no, that's all fine. And like without getting into going in deep, like London runs its own service, like the tubes and stuff. Like the London, it kind of governs that, and then there's like don't get me started. This could be the most boring episode ever if you get me started on the trains. But needless to say, I've got beef with the trains.
Okay, we won't probe any deeper into the train. Well, I
it's
can't
probably for the best.
We might. Who knows? We never know where these things lead. So
yeah, as a listener to the podcast, I'm well aware that we could probably go a whole hour without even mentioning guitars. So
you just did. So we can't do that.
Oh yeah, damn! I lost the game.
So okay, but I do have a question for you because I actually don't know the answer to this at all.
Okay.
But how did you guys get started? I know you guys started on the GAK podcast, which is different from what your current thing is, and then you also have a bunch of YouTube videos that I kind of once you told me that was kind of your launching point, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I've watched those. I didn't even draw the connection for some reason. I have no idea why. So weird.
So, where do we start? So, Jay,
I guess, that's the question. What came first, I guess?
Well, I guess actually, like, our kind of friendship really came first. So, I've known Jay, who is a podcast regular, for maybe 15 years, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe even longer, 15 or 16 years, something like that. Just through going to punk rock shows in Brighton. Brighton was like one of the hubs of the UK punk rock revival in early 2000s.
Okay.
That kind of post Blink-182, post Green Day. We had a bit of a kind of punk and ska punk revival in the UK. Loads of DIY stuff, loads of people traveling around and doing shows and stuff. So, Brighton was a bit of a hub for that. And Jay, I met Jay when he was like 14 or 15, and a young and enthusiastic punk rocker. And I'm kind of like, I'm a few years older. So, I was kind of, I felt I was like more scene hardened. I'd been going to shows for a couple more years. So,
gotcha.
He was like a kind of snotty kid. And so around that same time, I started working, actually a few years before that, I started working at GAK, which is a big guitar shop down on the south coast in Brighton. But also one of the UK's big like online stores.
Okay, got you.
It's probably it's like one of the big 2 or 3 in the UK. And so I started working there when I was 15 or 16, and up until a couple of years ago. So like 14 years worth of guitar shop work. In various capacities. So I started working there, and at some point, Matt, who was the other podcast regular, came and started working with us. Got really good friends with him, and then from knowing Jay from gigs and stuff, Jay then joined the shop, just like working on the till or the register. And so we were all kind of working in the guitar shop together. And then a few years down the line, Joe joined in, like doing marketing stuff. And that's how we kind of know each other, really.
Gotcha.
All working for the shop. And then I went away for a bit to go and do a degree in like broadcast, like media and broadcast and stuff and digital media. And kept working at the shop part-time and thought, like, why don't we do a podcast?
There you go.
Because there weren't a huge amount of guitar podcasts around at the time. Like, I know 60 Cycle Hum have been going a little while. So this was in 2013?
Okay.
Something like that. So, I mean, you might even know better than me because we kind of just did it because I like podcasts and I like guitars. I didn't really know about guitar podcasts or like this kind of burgeoning industry that seems to be going on.
Well, I was in a similar boat. Like, I was like, well, I like to talk about gear constantly. Why don't I figure out a way to, talk about gear on a podcast? Because I was the same way. I love listening to podcasts and noticed there was not that many, or at least not that many I was aware of.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
So, and realistically, there still isn't.
No, I listen to like loads of gaming stuff and sports and tech podcasts and stuff, and those are all kind of flooded. And on the guitar side of things, there's maybe like 5 or 6 that are worth listening to. So.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Like, what other ones do you listen to? Just out of curiosity.
So obviously, ToneMob.com podcast.
Woo.
60 Cycle Hum. Those guys are awesome, and since kind of got to know them on Facebook and stuff. I dip in and out of No Guitar Is Safe.
Okay.
Which is the Guitar Player podcast, which I think is like independent, but they publish it or something like that, which is cool. It's a totally different vibe to this. It's not really, they have a celebrity guitarist on every week, whereas all the other ones I listen to are kind of homebrew. What else? That's about it, really.
That's all I could. Sorry.
I was going to say, I know that Premier Guitar have just started one, but I kind of had a read of the format and didn't really fancy it. So
okay, yeah. Well, seems like the only one that you're really missing in there is Chasing Tone, and that's about it.
Of course, no, I listen to that as well. Of course, I listen to Chasing Tone. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that brings us to like 5 or 6, which are worth listening to. So
that's pretty much it too. Yeah, and those I'm glad you kind of told me about the No Guitar Is Safe and this is a little bit prejudice on my part. I seen that it was Guitar Player Magazine, and I was just kind of like, never mind, I'm not interested. Like,
yeah.
Which I probably shouldn't have done, because I've actually heard, this is like the 3rd time now that I've heard it's a pretty good show, so I'm gonna have to check it out.
And like, it depends on who's on it, really, and that's the same with, I listen to The Nerdist as well, which you probably know if you're a podcast guy. And it has kind of that vibe to it, in that, if I download it and it's someone I don't know or someone I'm not particularly keen on, I just won't listen to it. But if it's someone I'm interested in, then I'll dip into that. Whereas, like the more conversational ones, like the podcast that you do or podcasts that hopefully we do, Guitar Nerds, I mean, is more, it's like a personal journal as much as it is about guitars.
Oh, that's very true. I never really thought of it that way, but that's very accurate. I think for basically, I mean, Tone Mob, Guitar Nerds, and 60 Cycle Hum in particular, I think are very much that way. I never thought of them like a personal journal, but they kind of are. A gear journal.
Well, if you listen to Guitar Nerds, we spend probably the first 20 minutes, half an hour of a hour-ish long show just on a kind of segment that's loosely called "What Have You Been Up To?" So yeah, we just talk about what guitars we've been playing, or if we've been to see a gig, whether gear was good, or sometimes it's not about guitars at all. We'll say like, "Oh, it's been really sunny, so I haven't played any guitar." Which some people really like that. Some people, the feedback that we get is some people like, you just need to get on with the news, because we do a news segment about what pedals have come out, what guitars have come out and stuff.
Right.
But I think the things that I like about podcasts are the personal stuff. I think that is the attraction. Otherwise, I just read I'll read a review online or watch a YouTube video. So
that's how I feel too. Once in a while, not really so much on my show, but Brian gets some stuff on Chasing Tone where they're like, "Oh, come on, will you just get on to the guitar stuff?" And it's like, well, yes, we do talk about guitar stuff, but like you said, if that's all you want, and then you can find somebody just straight up talking about the latest Gibsons or whatever anywhere. You don't get that kind of personality and conversation that goes along with it, and that's why I like podcasts too. So,
well, and it's that that's kind of the reason that people have stopped buying guitar magazines, and I think in a way people are drifting away from traditional guitar websites as well. Covering the industry in a way that is very much like the magazines used to, which is, here's the gear that's come out, here's what we think of it, here's a couple of record reviews and maybe an interview with a celebrity guitarist. Like, I just don't think people are interested in the stuff that way anymore.
I think that speaks to like media in general, though.
Totally, yeah.
It's people are wanting that smaller, more niched, personal. People will come listen to your show because they like you guys or are interested in what you have to say, not necessarily because Slash is on it, or whatever.
I mean, I reckon our numbers would be pretty good for that episode if Slash was on it, but. Yeah, I think that's why people come back. I occasionally, if I'm doing a search on podcasts, if there's something that I'm interested in, I'll dip in and listen to an episode of a podcast on a particular topic that I'm interested in. But if there isn't that personal touch, I won't ever go back. Like, I won't subscribe. I'll just get the thing that I need and then leave. which is kind of how I feel about YouTube to an extent as well. Unless there's personality, I'll just dip in to a video that's about the direct subject that I'm looking for, and then I won't subscribe to that channel. I'll just shoot off and go and look at something else.
Yeah, I think a lot of people fall into that category. It's just, I don't know, it's just more interesting, I guess, to have that personal touch on things. That's the way media is going, and I think we're just going to see more and more of that as time goes on. I think the reason that, like, there's all of a sudden guitar podcasts are becoming a thing is because, like, podcasts have been popular for a while, but I think guitar players in general, and I include myself in this, are a little behind. Like, we're always playing catch up with what the rest of the world is doing sometimes because we're so rooted in old school ideas and vintage whatever. You know, I think it's something that the industry has as a whole. And that's probably why guitar player magazines and things like that are still relatively successful.
Totally. I wonder sometimes, like, who still buys the print magazines? And there must be an audience out there because, you know, they're still going. But yeah, for me, that just doesn't hold any sway. Like, I couldn't tell you a single, the big guitar magazine here is Guitarist, which is a big UK magazine. I couldn't tell you a single person who works there. Whereas, I know you do your podcast, and I know the guys at 60 Cycle Hum do theirs, and that to me is more important. I follow. If you say something's good, or the 60 Cycle Hum guys, or Brian Wampler says that something's good, then I know that that's their. I know it's your personal opinion, and I kind of trust that. Whereas if a magazine says it, I don't know, because they're so faceless. I always think, like, who's telling me this information?
Right. Well, and kind of further down that, like you said, you don't know anyone that works there. I don't either. Furthermore, do you know anybody in your immediate circle that reads them on a regular basis?
No, not really.
I don't either.
No, when I was still working retail, we'd get people come in and say, "Oh, I've seen this in a magazine," but it's always older guys, and that's for them it's a totally valid way of getting the information that they need. But I think if you're a bit more kind of internet savvy and you've grown up, I think the thing for me is I listen to and watch kind of a lot of stuff from the gaming industry, and because there's so many people involved in it, they're kind of very, I don't know, they're very far ahead in terms of what they're doing and how the media that's involved in it covers the industry, and that's kind of what we've tried to shoot for, I think, with Guitar Nerds.
That's really smart. I like that.
Well, I know I don't know how much, if you're much of a gamer or if you follow that much at all, but big sites like IGN and Giant Bomb and people like that, they're all pushing the personalities because it'd be so easy to just put up a press release, but any site can do that. Whereas if you're one of these big sites with a budget, you can afford to hire people with a bit of personality and a bit of talent. So that's kind of where I think a lot of these industries are kind of trending towards.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not a big gamer.
Okay.
But just knowing what I know about that industry and having friends who are, it's like that industry is on the cutting edge of everything because video games are all constantly, innovating and doing new things. They have to or they die. Yeah. So it makes sense that the media would follow trend. Whereas guitar players, like, innovation is sometimes, or guitar gear, sometimes innovation is a little bit discouraged. Yeah. So, interesting.
Yeah, but I think it's getting better, and I think that the more exposure there is, through things like YouTube and the more niches that are coming up. That channel Knobs that does the pedal demos.
Oh, yes.
Incredible stuff. But could you ever see, like, Guitar Player or Guitarist or anything doing a video like that? There's just absolutely no way.
No.
And that's because they've been able to find the niche through something like YouTube.
Yep, that's true. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, you started the podcast while you guys were still at GAK, and then you have these YouTube videos that are actually, like, they have loads of hits. And like I said, I forgot, like, I've watched several of their videos. I totally spaced.
So we got up to the point in the story, I guess, where we were doing the GAK podcast because I'd just was going through university and doing media and digital tech and bits and pieces. And then I left to go and do something else. And Jay and Matt left fairly close behind. Joe still works there, and we're still good friends with all the GAK guys and stuff. But then we wanted to still hang out. Like I say, our philosophy has always been like it's a bit of a personal journal. So we still wanted to get together and drink beers and drink gin and talk about guitars. So so that's what we've been doing for the last 18 months, something like that. As Guitar Nerds, the podcast. But just before that, I started the YouTube channel. And it's not... I mean, we've started doing some more traditional stuff, like we do gear demos and stuff now. We do a thing called Pedal of the Week, where we do a demo pedal a week. But really, like you say, the ones that have got the big numbers are the kind of BuzzFeed-esque list videos.
Yeah. I've seen that, and I was kind of, after we talked the first time, I was like, I wonder, like, oh, this has a ton of views. Like, that's crazy. I would almost say that the as far as just strict numbers go, that's probably higher than anything else you've done, right?
What the kind of list videos?
Yeah.
I mean, they certainly dwarf the kind of gear demos because. We don't have a professional studio for the gear demos. We do it in, one of our houses, and we get some really interesting gear. We've been lucky to work with some really small builders, and we're just doing a series of videos with Seymour Duncan on their pedals.
Oh, sweet.
But there's so many people doing amazing demos out there that is very, very hard to compete in. But the other videos we do, the list videos, are, I guess, a bit unique, really. No one else is doing it, and we're kind of lucky to get in there first. Mm-hmm. But again, they're unique to the guitar industry, but they're not unique to video games or, loads of people are doing list videos on YouTube. And they're really interesting. I think, that's the sort of thing I watch. I've got 10 minutes and I want to sit down and watch the top 10, top 10 FIFA goals ever. I'll do that because it's a real neat time killer, and you kind of feel like you've seen the whole story in 10 minutes. So that's kind of what we're taking our inspiration again more from YouTube culture than gear videos, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you find that you are able to drive people? I don't know I haven't seen that you've tried this or not. Maybe you have. Have you found that you're able to drive people from your YouTube channel to your podcast relatively easy, or is that a challenge?
It's difficult to know where people come from, I guess. As you probably know, like podcast statistics are, I don't know who hosts your podcast, but podcast statistics are pretty vague at the best of times.
Yeah, that's being generous.
Yeah, I'm sure you find it as well. We know roughly how many people listen, and it seems to be going up, which is good. But it's just, so we don't know how many of those are coming from YouTube. But the podcast is on YouTube now as well, because something's happened in the last few weeks. We do the podcast live.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we hooked up with a service called Amplify, who are some guys based in California who essentially want to create a live streaming platform for music and guitar related stuff. And they had seen the videos and heard the podcast and said, like, why don't you film this or stream it live, video wise? So we're still kind of getting our heads around it, and that once it's filmed live, it then gets archived on Amplify and also goes up onto YouTube as well. So I'd like to feel the podcast is reaching different audiences, but still iTunes is, the way people find podcasts.
Of course. Yeah, I actually found you guys because, which is funny. I don't know why it took me so long, but I found you because Ryan from 60 Cycle Hum was like, "Are you listening to this?" I was like, "No, what is that?" And then it was like, guys, "Oh, sweet, this is awesome!"
Those guys have been really nice to us, and I've heard you talk about it before, but there's like a real sense of community with podcasters, and particularly, I think with the kind of small group of guitar podcasts that there are. We've talked about you on the show, and we talked about 60 Cycle Hum, and I think Brian is going to come onto the show at some point.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, I mean, why not? We could all view each other as competition, I guess. But surely it's better to just share. The real competition I don't see as guitar podcasts. I see it as gaming YouTube channels and stuff like that. Things that are going to eat into people's attention.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So yeah, let's all be nice to each other. How about that?
Of course. No, I'm totally on board with that because we're honestly, it's still too small of a group of solid hardcore listeners.
Yeah.
Because everyone that listens to my show most likely listens to your show too, or they probably will after this. You know what I mean?
I hope so. Come and join us. If you're listening to this, join us. We're friendly and we talk about guitars for an hour a week.
Yeah, and they don't sound like dumb Americans. It's great.
Just sound like the dumb English instead.
Which instantly sounds smarter than an American. At least that's what Americans think.
Well, at least smarter or more evil, if I'm led to believe 80s action films.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, maybe you guys are the evil podcast. Maybe we don't want to share listeners. You guys might try to murder us or something. I don't know. Hold them for ransom.
We're friendly, but then I would say that if we were evil. So
that's true. I don't know what to believe anymore. Nice. So you guys did something I thought was pretty interesting on Twitter. The World Cup of Pedals.
Yeah.
Why don't you I'll let you explain to the audience what that is. But I thought that was really fun. I just wouldn't say that.
It was fun and extremely stressful for me because setting it up was a bit of a nightmare. So World Cup of Pedals I got the inspiration for this because there's a British comedian called Richard Osman who he has a TV show over here, like a quiz show, and he was doing a thing called the World Cup of Biscuits. And this is in the European biscuit sense, so like hobnobs. You familiar with a hobnob?
No, I've heard of hobnobbing, and that usually means you're up to no good. But what's a hobnob?
It's a chocolate-covered oat biscuit.
Oh, okay. Oh, like a cookie. What would we call a cookie over here?
What you would call a cookie, yeah. But there's like. Yeah, so he was basically on Twitter. He was having a knockout tournament of Twitter polls about biscuits, and I forget what one, maybe like a crunch cream or something like that. And we thought this is really fun. It's a good way of getting everyone involved. I mean, he is super famous, so he was getting like 1 million people voting in each round. And so yeah, we set up a knockout tournament. I think we had like 64 different pedals to begin with, and we just let people vote on their favorite in each round, like groups of 4 vote on the favorite. Do you like the Proco Rat or the Seymour Duncan Vapor Trail or a Carbon Copy or a, I don't know, Boss DD 500 or something? And yeah, we had a knockout tournament that was the World Cup of Pedals.
Yes, it was super cool, and I was very shocked at the winner. I couldn't believe that. I mean, that's a cool pedal, but I was just surprised. Like, you don't hear that much buzz about it for that one. The Casper delay, is that right?
Yeah, Cast Engineering, Casper delay. So when we set it up, we not only did we tag each brand in their kind of first round, or we tagged them in every round actually on Twitter, and we also sent around an email to people we know in the industry and said, your brand is taking part in this. You should share it on social. And that's kind of what it ended up being an experiment in. It was like who was going to get behind their pedal the most and who could kind of mobilize their fan base. Because, the bigger companies, although we've worked with them in some regards, they just didn't seem that fussed. So it was really funny seeing, super popular pedals dropping out really early to these kind of unknown brands and stuff. And it actually worked out great because it was a cool way for little unknown brands to get involved and push their brands. So yeah, Cast Engineering came out on top because they were kind of best at mobilizing their troops, as it were.
Yeah, they did really good. I thought that was very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and because of that, I think they picked up a couple dealers. People started stocking the pedals and stuff. So yeah, really cool for us to see that, because we really like the stuff. Cost Engineering are a cool brand. So, but yeah, there was other people. Thorpe Effects. Have you heard the Thorpe Effects stuff?
Oh yeah. The Mushroom Cloud is high on my list to acquire.
Okay. Yeah, they've. We keep meaning to get one in for a Pedal of the Week demo, but we've not had one yet. So I've just got a big mountain of pedals I'm looking at right now in the corner of my my living room, and we need to get through a lot of stuff before we get around to it.
Well, are you gonna do it again next year, do you think?
I want to, but maybe we should do World Cup of Guitars. The problem is, I think
that's true.
Like, because because of the situation where we're just four blokes doing like demo videos, it's much easier for us to do pedal videos.
Of course.
So we haven't really reached out to many guitar manufacturers because they're very unlikely to send us one. It's much easier to send a pedal out, I guess, for demo. So yeah, my guitar knowledge, despite hosting a podcast called Guitar Nerds and doing videos and stuff, my current guitar knowledge of local builders and smaller builders is probably not what it should be.
Well, that's just how it goes. Like nobody wants to pack up a $3,000 guitar and ship it. Like, unless they've sold it to somebody. Like, it's just it's nerve-wracking to ship guitars anyway. Yeah. You can pack them so well, and then they just get trashed. That's why you don't see very many guitar demos outside of the manufacturers themselves doing it. Of course, it just kind of logistically makes sense. But,
and retailers, I guess, is the other one, because they're on their shop floor.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
they can just go and grab them and do that. So.
So here's a good question for you, and it's always interesting to talk to other guys who play a lot of pedals. Do you have any specific companies or products that are really piquing your interest right now? Because there's just so much cool stuff out there. It's always interesting to hear. Is anybody really doing it for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads. We keep getting sent really nice stuff, and every time I plug stuff in, I'm kind of blown away by what people are doing. So my personal board is actually pretty conservative. Like, I've got a tuner, I've got a Crybaby, I've got Electro-Harmonic Soul Food, which I've kind of fallen out of love with. Strymon Flint, which is one of my favorite pedals of all time. And I'll tell you what, actually, I just bought a Count to 5. The Montreal Assembly Count to 5, which is totally not the sort of thing I would normally buy, because my personal board is kind of boring. But yeah, I can't figure out how it works. Have you tried one yet?
No, not yet. I really want to, though. I think I'm going to have to break down and get one pretty soon, because I'm just like, everyone's talking about it, and I've not laid my fingers on those knobs, so I better get one pretty soon.
Yeah, I need to sit down. I actually don't have an amp in the house at the moment, so I need to sit down and plug it in and just kind of get my head around it. So
no amp in the house.
No amp in the house right now. It's at Jay, who's on the podcast. It's at his place because he's selling a few guitars and he needs a small amp to when someone comes around to try stuff out. So,
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
I just have a little Hughes and Kettner Tubemeister 5.
The Hughes and Kettner stuff. For a while, like, I just kind of like ignored. Yeah, I was like, whatever. German amp company. It's probably for shred metal, which isn't really my thing. But this is like the third time in the last 2 weeks. I was like, have you tried any of that new Hughes and Kettner stuff? Like, it's pretty cool. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to revisit this company. I think they're much more interesting than I gave them credit for.
So the reason I have a Tubemeister 5 is obviously it's 5 watt. It's really small, and yeah, I mean, I'm guessing the property situation in Portland is similar to here, but I just live in like a 1-bedroom flat, 1-bedroom apartment. So yeah, I need something small and fairly quiet. So the Tubemeister, and I got it cheap. That's the other thing. I picked it up in a super cheap deal, so I have that. But when you have a bit of gear that you're not sure that you like.
Yes.
Does that ring bells? That's kind of where I'm at with the Tubemeister.
Yeah.
It's good because it's fairly flat and even response on the clean channel. So running pedals in the front end is pretty nice. But yeah, the drive channel is pretty poor. It's kind of like, this is going to sound like a strange way to describe something, but when something's like papery.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of like crunchy, but not in a good way.
Yeah,
yeah,
and just a bit like flat sounding, and so I don't know if I like the Tubemeister 5 yet, but it's here, it's in the house, and it does the job for the moment. But I kind of fancy one of those bass breakers.
Yeah, me too. I played one the other day. I was like, oh, these look pretty cool. I wonder what it sounds like, and this sounded really, really good.
Yeah,
I think they're a good pedal platform.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So it's the 007, isn't it? That's the smallest one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I played the 15.
The one you tried? Okay.
No, I tried the 15, so it was a little bit louder.
Okay.
But I think the preamp and stuff is all the same, so
yeah.
It should have a very, very close, sound.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by them because I'm a Fender guy at heart. Really, like I'm primarily a bass player, I guess. So I play Fender basses, and I've had various Fender guitars and stuff, but I've never owned a Fender amp. On the podcast we bang on about the Blues Junior all the time. That's kind of a bit of a running gag. It's the drinking game of guitar nerds is when we say Blues Junior, finish your drink, and you'll be the drunkest person alive. So yeah, love Blues Juniors, but even 15 watts is too loud for where I live. So it's kind of cool to see that they're doing something even lower wattage. Yeah, 7-watt bass breaker. I think that's what I'm going to investigate.
I like that theory. I mean, 15 watts is loud, or it can be very loud. I mean, you talk about the Blues Junior all the time. All I talk about is my Benson Monarch. That thing's loud.
Yeah,
it. I mean, I measured it with just an iPhone decibel meter one time. I just plugged a looper in because I built this little shred shed out in my backyard, and I tried to make it as soundproof as I could afford to make it, basically.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a very expensive endeavor if anyone's ever looked into trying to get things isolated. So I did a test when it was all done, and I was pushing about 115 decibels according to that iPhone decibel meter.
Wow.
So 15 watts is plenty loud for depending on the design of the amp and the efficiency of the speaker. That's for sure.
Well, it's kind of why we always recommend the Blues Junior, because a big part of the podcast is the Facebook group, and we've got a real cool little community there who come on and submit questions that either get answered by us or other people in the group, or we take them to the podcast, and kind of try and answer it in a round table kind of way. And the reason the Blues Junior keeps coming up is because 15 watts is loud, so we can recommend it as a small gigging amp. But for most people who live in a slightly bigger property than mine, 15 watts will be okay for home. And they're about £400 to £500. I think they're like $450. I guess that's kind of what most people are looking to spend. So yeah, Blues Junior just keeps. It's just a real easy go-to for us. And not saying that we're lazy, but sort of. And also the other thing is, you mentioned like Benson and stuff, but you kind of can't get that wide a variety of amps in the UK. It's the one thing. Pedals have really started coming in and guitars have started coming in, but you see people like Morgan. And Friedman now have got a distributor, but real small companies we struggle with because it goes back to that shipping. The likelihood of someone shipping ones and twos over here is pretty small.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're so spoiled here. We can get everything almost. Like everything's here, and half of it seems like it's in Portland.
yeah, I need to come over and visit because I've been to the States a couple of times. I went to NAMM a few years back, and but yeah, I've never been to Portland, so desperate to come over.
Yeah, well, we got about just off the top of my head, like 5 pedal manufacturers that are in the, or more. There's probably more. I don't know. There's a ton of gear builders in Portland for some reason. It's like a hub. I don't know
maybe I can charge it to guitar nerds in some way. Maybe I can get a free holiday by saying that I'm going to do investigative journalism about the amp building scene in Portland. Maybe
exactly. See, now you're thinking like I do. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to the grocery store, but it's right by a Guitar Center. I can write those miles off.
Yeah, totally.
If I go into the Guitar Center for market research,
Yeah, and maybe pick up some beers. You probably use them while you're editing videos and stuff. So that's fine. Just charge it all. Charge it all to the company. It's fine.
Exactly. Do you guys have? Now we're gonna just have everyone rolling their eyes or turning this off at this point. Do you guys have similar business laws to the U.S. then, it sounds like, because you're talking about the same kind of stuff here, like miles and business expenses and etc.
Yeah, I mean, without going into it too deeply, we're kind of like Guitar Nerds is set up now for all that. So yeah, I think going deep into it would be super boring, but
we can do that off the air.
Yeah, it's kind of got to the stage now, where we have people signing up via Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
Who sign up on Patreon. Guitar Nerds get an extra bit of content every week, and so people are donating, and in a way we have to.
I lost you right when you said Patreon. We'll have to do a quick edit. Just rewind the last 20 seconds and repeat it.
So
41 minutes. Okay, sorry.
Sure. That's all
Go
right.
ahead.
Nice. So yeah, now we're kind of we're set up, and one of the things that we have with Guitar Nerds is people subscribe via Patreon and help us out with kind of running costs and stuff and they get some extra content every week. So yeah, we've got to a point where we're kind of deciding where to go next with that. What it will probably fund is getting us to NAMM, because obviously it's an expensive flight over. And I really want to do NAMM. Like I said, I was there 2014 shooting videos and stuff. So yeah, really want to come over again. Now that we know a few more people, like speaking to you and speaking to the 60 Cycle Hum guys. When I went over last, I was with a retailer. I was with GAK, so it was very much like go over there, speak to the brands that we deal with, and shoot videos of their stuff, which is cool. It's always great to get the first videos up of stuff like live from the show floor, but it would be cool to come over and do like crossover podcasts and maybe set up some sort of video thing and meet a few of the brands that we've been dealing with. Like I've never met the guys from Cast Engineering, but we've reviewed a load of their pedals and stuff. So
yeah, that'd be super cool. Yeah, I was at NAMM 2015.
Okay.
And that was the first time ever for me. And I say that we keep talking about 60 Cycle Hum, but they were like my NAMM Sherpas. Yeah. Because I had no idea what to expect, and they're like, just kind of took me and my friends that came with me under their wing, and were like, listen, it'll be fine,
They've been doing it a while. They've got all the connections. They're the go-to guys, I think.
Yeah. They had done it before, and they kind of walked around in a daze, like I would have.
Yeah.
But since they kind of were like, oh yeah, this is how it works, and you can go here and here and talk to this person. I'm like, oh, okay. This is much simpler than what I made it out to be in my head.
It was so overwhelming, there's so much just in that convention center that, it's so easy to just walk around kind of, like you say, in a daze. Yeah,
it's like a sensory overload, like in a huge way. It's just so many flashing lights and like loud sounds. It's just like...
Did you spend much time or any time in the drum area? Because that is it's like a migraine brought to life.
Oh yeah. Well, talking about Benson again, him and Veritas Guitars were set up right by the drums last year.
Oh man.
And I was talking to Chris. I'm like, yeah, I'm your booth looks great. You got good stuff here. I'm gonna go though, because I'm about to blow my brains out.
Yeah, I think the year that we went, it was Pigtronics, who were like directly opposite the drum area, and his name escapes me, but the fella from Pigtronics was trying to explain the Echolution which is super complicated, and all you could hear was just kids just smashing cymbals. Yeah, not the best place to be, I don't think.
That's probably why they had an actual ISO booth last year.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, Pigtronics and Supro.
Right.
You know, they're kind of the same company or under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
They had an actual isolation booth last year, and that was really, really nice because you could actually, you know, understand what they were talking about, which was a huge plus. And I have a feeling that was a direct result of them being across from the drums.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's because we were there doing product demos. The brands that had isolation booths and quiet areas and stuff, the show was so much better for them in terms of like the video content that was coming out.
For sure. I mean, like, well, not everybody can afford to do this, but talk to Paul Reed Smith there. And yeah, he had like not only an ISO booth, but like they had that entire room upstairs. Yeah. And then we went into the back of that. So that was like a complete isolated, like lovely experience. So.
Yeah, those the upstairs rooms are, I'd imagine they're pretty pricey, but it's definitely, you know, for the big brands, it's totally worth it.
Oh, of course, because then they can do things like what you're talking about, video content, and it's such a better quality because it's not across from the cymbals. Yeah.
When we were there, we saw like a couple of live gigs in the Taylor area, and you couldn't do that thing, the sort of thing on the show floor. It's just chaos.
Yeah, it's undescribable. I know we could go on and on about how it is, but like I guess people just need to go for themselves eventually.
The whatever the underground hall is my absolute favorite. Some of the stuff in there is so weird.
Oh yes,
and I totally didn't appreciate it when we were there, when I was there filming, because we were looking out for kind of our own brands. Some of the stuff down there, it varies from like amazing, like really cool boutique builders right through to like OEM, you know, Chinese built stuff that, you know, looks exactly the same as the Moore or the Hotone pedals, just with another name on it. And like flicking between those two kind of realities, like each end of the pedal spectrum is pretty mind blowing.
Isn't it weird? Like I've talked about this with Wampler a couple times. Like why? What is it? I don't understand those companies. You know what I mean? Like how they can afford to be at NAMM.
Yeah.
And like they can't be moving that much volume because everyone knows they're exactly the same. Like there's like 20 Joyo clone companies. It's weird.
I guess it must be that their factory is probably also making other things, like other consumer electronics.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's probably that. And, you know, it would only take them to, you know, pick up a distributor who wants to get their own name, you know, own brand pedals out there to start doing volume. So, yeah, I could, in my kind of current job, I deal with this quite a lot because I work for an importer. And, yeah, you just see that all the time, you know, as factories like going out there and looking for brands who you know, or distributors who want to put their own name on something. So, you know, someone could go out there potentially as a distributor, buy a very similar pedal to Moore or Joyo or Hotone, or the other one that comes into the UK a lot, and kind of slap their brand on there. And if they've got enough of a marketing machine, it could be really successful. You know.
Right. That's a. Well, thanks for the explanation, because I've just been scratching my head about it. I'm like, what are they doing? Like,
yeah, I don't think that they're sitting there kind of like in the factory going, right, how are we going to topple Wampler or topple Boss? I think it's more that they're kind of providing a service for someone to market their brand through a product.
Okay. You learn something new every day. Every day.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's the other place I'd like to go. Actually, I'd love to go out to some of the Chinese factories and just see, you know, what's going on there and see how the pedals are being built and stuff. I think it'd be interesting.
I think the scale would just be insane to see that many. Like, you know, there's just thousands and thousands just sitting there with like probably with no sticker on them, just waiting to have the brand printed on it or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, and they're you know, the kind of prototypes and stuff would just be insane. Really, really interesting. Obviously, it's completely the other end of like really also interesting boutique builders who are doing it for the art a lot of the time. I'd like to kind of see both ends of the spectrum.
For sure. That would be fascinating, actually. And I mean, there's even like, there's factories over here that are literally like factories that I'd like to see that are making effects for other people. I think it would be interesting to kind of see like all the different brands kind of side by side. The interesting thing about some of the boutique stuff is even though there are like companies that they do the design and have other people build it for them. I mean, that's essentially what J-Rocket does.
Yeah.
They even put out a video about it. It'd just be interesting to go in there and see all the different brands that are made in the same place that are kind of competitors. It's just kind of another.
I always find that weird. I find that weird. Like I say, I deal with day-to-day with consumer electronics, and just knowing that a lot of the big players make stuff in exactly the same factory, made by exactly the same people, just on a different production schedule, is really funny to me.
It is, and it's like it'd be. Well, I guess it's kind of semi-secret for a reason. Like, I don't think most people would like to hear that.
No.
But that's our job, is to peel the curtain back. We got to peel the curtain back.
Indeed, which is, again, we talk about kind of like the old way of music industry or, gear journalism. I think no one's really done that. You pick up a guitar mag and you get first 10 pages are interview with the artists. Your back few pages are some gear reviews, and then you got your classifieds. And unless it's kind of like a PR piece about, this brand, let us into their factory to have a look. Which is, a lot of the time will be advertorial content and paid for and stuff. I just want to see different stories about guitar gear. And I don't think anyone's doing that yet.
Well, there's a lot that can be said that hasn't been said, just like you said. How many times can I say said in a row, which is another thing we're trying to do. There's a lot that people don't realize. Like, it's starting to become more and more common knowledge, but for a while, and I remember when I found it out, I didn't know that a lot of demo guys, like the bigger guys, get paid to do demos. I didn't know that when I first started podcasting. I had no idea. I was like, then you take a step back and go, well, of course they would be. Like, they're doing a lot of work.
Yeah, completely. And it's the only way you can make it a viable business. But yeah, I think that because I've kind of come from, obviously, I've, worked in the kind of gear industry for a long time. Like I said, 14 years in a guitar shop and stuff like that. But one of my main interests is, and like I said, I went away to study it for a long time, is broadcast and kind of storytelling. And I think no matter whether it's, like I said, podcasts about gaming or sports or whatever you listen to, finance, the podcast and the content that's interesting is the stories. It kind of doesn't, the object that you're talking about kind of acts as the MacGuffin to the story, as it were. And I think no one's done that with guitar stuff yet. That's the key word. Indeed. There's definitely scope for something like that. And I'm not talking about doing a full like NPR style podcast about guitars, but I think every now and then there's room for more than just, this is single coil pickup, so it sounds like this, and this has a maple neck which is brighter than rosewood. How many times can you hear that? So yeah, and the podcast that we do is kind of, the story is about us, but I would kind of like to do some video stuff that's about this. I had the idea of like doing a around the world in 80 guitars project, where maybe like actually flying and visiting these people and try and make it around the world in a kind of clockwise direction or anti-clockwise or whatever, going and staying with a guitar builder for a couple days or a week and like watching what they do and speaking to them, and then go to another one. But that's an expensive project.
That is an expensive project, but I would totally watch every second of it if you did that.
Completely. But wouldn't that be interesting rather than just going, oh, yeah, we use this tone wood and we use a coil tap here? You know, that stuff is cool and it's really good to know, but there's only so far that can take you, you know?
I totally agree. And when you were talking about the story, and whenever somebody's like asks me what episode of my podcast they should listen to, like I automatically, and there's a lot that I really like, but I automatically always point to the Robert Keeley episode.
Yeah.
Specifically because like of what you just said, he really opened up and told his story on that, like way more than I would have ever expected. Like he told stuff on there that I don't know had been officially made public at that point. Like his struggles with prescription pill addiction and stuff like that. And it was like, whoa, like this just got heavy.
Well, I mean, can you ever imagine, you know, that being on a traditional guitar website or, you know, in a print magazine? There wouldn't, for, you know, the criticism that's always leveled at guitar magazines is, you know, why is Joe Bonamassa on the cover again? And it's like, well, that's what that audience wants to read, I think, you know, and that's what sells magazines. I don't think a story, you know, about you know, Robert Keeley's like you say, like the struggle would sell that many magazines, but for a podcast, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good talk, and it just like made me like have even more respect for him than I already did. It was just like this is like you know, it's just the story. It all comes back to the story. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what everything's about, you know. It's the great human tradition of storytelling, and that's kind of, I feel that there is room for that in the guitar world, and that's kind of, I guess we already do tell stories about the guitars themselves, you know, and that's why relics exist, and that's why there's so much reverence for, you know, late 50s Les Pauls. It's because of the story. Yes, they might be like a subjectively better instrument, but the thing that draws you towards it is the story.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I like used guitars. Like even just not a vintage guitar, just a used guitar can be really interesting. It's like, oh, how did that get there? You know, I wonder what was going on that made this nick appear, you know, in this otherwise fine guitar. Like something interesting probably happened, even if it was simple as the drunk bass player knocked it out of the stand. Like it's still interesting to know.
There's nothing wrong with drunk bass players.
I didn't say there was.
And I have knocked many guitars off stands, so there's definitely, like my P bass, I've got a 2003 USA Standard P bass, which has done probably nearly 1,000, maybe 800 to 1,000 gigs, something like that. And it has big chunks out of it, but because it's poly finish, they just come off as like chunks.
Right.
I wish that I'd got something. I wish I'd got something that has a nitro finish, because it would tell much more of a pleasing story. As it is, it looks like a, I don't know, shattered iceberg where the bits of it have just like splintered off. So.
That's what I've told people. I you know, there's a lot of mojo that goes along with the nitro finish, and you know, people say it breathes better and all that. Like, well, that I don't really buy, but I do. What I do like about it is how it wears. Yeah, it has nothing to do with. I like its lack of durability.
Yeah, completely. And well, I think if you hit them hard enough, they're as durable as each other. It's just how they react to that. Like the nitro just kind of bruises.
Yeah, it just looks better when it gets injured, basically.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Mark, we're really close to the end.
Okay.
And so I better wrap it up. But we should do this, and I think this would be really interesting to get the British take on this.
Definitely.
What kind of pizza do you like?
I knew this was coming. So,
I knew you did.
there's a place that is not a chain. It's just a little place in Brighton called Pizza Me, who hopefully I'll get them a copy of this podcast and we'll get free pizzas. That'd be amazing. But Pizza Me is the best pizza I've ever had, and I've just spent some time in Italy. Pizzas there were phenomenal, but Pizza Me, I don't know what it is about it. They've just got something going on with the cheese that's amazing. They've got something on with the base that's incredible. They do one that is a smoked ham, egg, and asparagus pizza that is so good. Best pizza ever.
That sounds right up my alley. Now I really want to come to Brighton.
Well, you're welcome anytime. Come and check out the pizza.
Oh, will do. Definitely. Come to Brighton. We have hipsters and good pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got a beach that doesn't have any sand on it. We've got a pier that's got some bad rides on it. And we've got lots of good music as well. So
perfect. That sounds like my kind of town.
It's good. It's good. It's best place in the UK.
All right. Well, I guess this is coming, Mark. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yes, we should do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Let's make this a semi-regular thing.
Okay, we can do that for sure.
I'm sure there's loads of stuff to catch up on. Not too soon, but we'll do it again down the line.
All right, sounds good. I love it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, for Mark, this is Blake, and as always, good luck and good tones.
Thank you very much for tuning in this week. Don't forget to check out Mark's show, the Guitar Nerds Podcast. It's on iTunes and all the usual podcast listening spots where you found this one. So make sure you check it out if you like guys sitting around talking about guitars, which apparently you're tuned into a guitar podcast. So here's another one for you. Also, make sure you check out the Tone Mob Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, search The Tone Mob. You'll see the group pop up. And I'll approve you. And you can go in there and learn a whole bunch of stuff, because that's what's been happening to me lately. There's some really smart, really experienced gear nerd members in there. And I've learned a lot recently from the members of that group. It's really fun. We're having a great time. Good conversations. And I think you'll really, really enjoy it. That's Facebook. Search The Tone Mob, and you'll find it. And that's it for the week. That's it. It's been a wild week. If you are following the Tone Mob on any of the social media, you know why. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So hit me up anytime. I'm here to help. I'll talk to you next week. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.